pretty common phenomenon for a lot of people. If they use cannabis chronically, after maybe a year or two, something kind of changes for a lot of people where it doesn't show up the same. It's not as fun. It might, they might get like, wow, I never used to get paranoid or have an anxiety response to cannabis, but lately I am a lot, especially in a social situation, something like that. So generally that's usually those cases that will happen where someone will say, I'm not enjoying this anymore in the same way. But again, so much of my kind of identity and friend group formed around this. We would get together and smoke a joint together, right? And bond and hang out. So now I don't want to be the one person who's not. And are they still going to be my friend? And am I going to be kind of missing out on something with them if I don't? And so I think that's very real for people, or feeling this pressure. Like I have a friend, so years ago, he's a musician, and he's like, I every time I smoke pot, it's awful. I've smoked maybe 20 times. It's been terrible every time. And I'm like, no matter what I do, if I take one hit or smoke a lot or whatever, I'm like, I don't gamble much, but I bet on the 21st time it's going to suck.
Right.
So
Yeah.
probably based on your endogenous cannabinoid system, all of it. So it's just, but he felt pressure because he was in like an environment with people and the music that he was playing and engaged in, that it was just, cannabis was kind of around. And so he felt like an odd person out not doing it. So he felt stigma by not doing it. I don't know. So I think that's part of it where people feel this pressure. It's not like peer pressure, like you better smoke this or I'm not going to be your friend anymore. That's not how it goes. It's very subtle, and it's often the pressure we feel it kind of internally. I just tell people, if it's not for you and it doesn't play a role in your life, just be chill and be confident in that decision. And when it's offered to you, just be like, oh no, I'm good. No, thank you. And just be confident in it, and don't make a big deal of it one way or another. And people are going to, if you're a good person and people want to be your friend, they're going to be your friend regardless. If they're not because you don't smoke cannabis,
that's a sign of
like whatever, move on. The question between use and abuse gets really tricky because it's really hard to standardize. So with alcohol right now, for example, someone could say, well, what is adult responsible use of alcohol? And you can give all these things around risk reduction and never letting your blood alcohol content get above 0.06 and making sure you're hydrated and drinking water. You never drive a car, things like that, right? We know this, right? We have a number on it really around BAC, essentially not letting that point of diminishing returns, right? 0.055 to 0.06. That's where beyond that, you're going beyond the buzz point. We can really put that as a demarcation. That gets tricky with cannabis, right? Because it's almost impossible. What's the terpene profile? When was it harvested? Were the trichomes amber color or were they cloudy, right? Now is it more sedating because there's more CBN and the THC started to degrade based on when the person harvested it, regardless if it's a sativa or indica? What if the THC level is 15% versus 25%? Is it one hit or two hits or 10 or one hit of a concentrate? Right? It's almost impossible to quantify that based on all these factors that are playing into it. So I love this question. I'll ask young people, particularly, especially if I used to teach a class like for conduct if students got caught smoking cannabis on campus. So I know they already have experience with it or use it. I would ask the students, what does adult responsible use of cannabis look like? What if you had to describe that to someone? And that is a tough question for people to answer because it's complicated. It's harder to put this like quantifiable number on it. And so again, it's looking at it from kind of these different personal factors, and it's a very complicated one. It's an interesting one, around that, the self-awareness piece, and to have, to be able to do that and say, wow, I'm using cannabis way more than I want to be. Mm-hmm. And I've had students tell me that. I've had students say, I basically start my day off smoking a concentrate and I don't want to. I don't like it. It doesn't really even make me feel good, but it's just become such a way of being for me. It's hard for me to get out from under it. Or I stopped using cannabis and I thought it was helping me with my anxiety and I thought it was helping me with my sleep, but I realized it was the opposite. It was actually making me more anxious, intermittent anxiety, depending on how high I got at that moment. And it was actually my sleep, it was rough for the first week or two when I stopped using, but now it's way better. And I sleep deeper and I sleep long. I don't wake up in the middle of the night, stuff like that. So it's interesting. Some of the things we think it might be doing for us, maybe it's not. So I think it's important, anything in life, to take away something. It really helps you reevaluate it,
Yeah. I mean,
what role it plays in your life.
I think something that is really valuable that a lot of people that I know that use cannabis use this as a tool as regular abstinence breaks to try to have that self-assessment of like, okay, I'm going to stop using for a week, a month, whatever.
Yep.
Try to see what a new baseline is like without that substance involved in my routine, and then make a decision after that of, do I want to continue having that substance, integrated into my life or not? And
if I do, is it different?
Exactly. Yeah. So extending that safety profile from the cannabis flower to extracts is, I'm seeing a lot of that right now. And it seems like there aren't a lot of people really questioning that, of extending that safety profile.
Well, extending the safety profile also to, it's a cannabis product that's related to the flower. How does it show up for a 15-year-old who eats 100 milligrams of THC in an edible, right? Psychologically,
right?
How does that show up? And not only one, you're talking about novel products with concentrates, but also how that alters the entourage effect and how all the cannabinoids work together in the system, in a biological system. All that is part of it, which we can't even. We're not quite there yet in our level of understanding.
Oh, right, yeah.
And what I would say with this, it's like, there's nuance to it, right? There's nuance to this entire conversation around cannabis, but people love things in we're in this time where it's kind of like, we get our information from a headline on social media, let alone going to an article that wrote about, that came up with that headline, and then let alone going to the research article that informed that pop culture article. It's not really happening. Everything is kind of like this. We're getting information from headlines and memes. Just yesterday, my daughter was like, "Hey, did you know Joe Rogan's running for president in 2020?" I was like, "That's not happening." She's like, "I saw a meme about it." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, please do not get your information from memes." And I do not think that's true at all. I've heard nothing about that. So it's like, it's just interesting what I have found, and I talk about this quite a bit whenever I present to whatever age group. I talk about confirmation bias, and I say of a confirmation bias essentially is, we seek out and find information and research that already confirms our pre-existing beliefs and ideas about something. And we do this politically. We do it with a lot of things. Cannabis is really prominent with that. What I found that people who are really pro are only pro, and it's really hard for them to really hear. So it doesn't surprise me that people get mad at you. It's hard for them to hear or be exposed to other information. And the people who are really anti are like, yep, should be Schedule 1 federally, should be prohibited. No one should ever use it, has no medical application, et cetera. So the confirmation bias people step into around this topic, I think, is really prominent. But we do this with so many things. So like most things, it's not black and white.
Right.
There's complicated aspects to it. And that's, for me, when I do any kind of education, specifically when I'm doing it with like high schoolers or young college students, I ask them to really think critically about health and wellness and who they are as people. That, to me, it's like I have this flow chart that I have, if you're making a decision about substance use, and it's just all these questions that no one ever, I don't think a lot of times we're asking young people to think about, where am I at mentally, physically, and socially in my health right now? How will this decision I'm making impact that? What's the purity? What's the dosage? Who am I going to be with? What's my mindset going into it? What's the setting I'm going to be around? What would the people in my life who love and care about me feel about the decision I'm making? What impact could this have on my life in general, good, bad, or indifferent? Like just run through a series of questions for them to really process this and think about it. Because so much of this now, we have to keep encouraging people to think critically about their decision-making and their life and their health, and not just kind of get on a team and say, that's the team I'm on.
I know that a lot of parents don't know what to do.
They don't.
Once it's there.
Once the ball is rolling and they know they're using, and then they want to, I've talked to parents who deal with this on a range of levels where it's like, we're going to hold, it's a carrot and a stick, right? We're going to punish you or reward you, or we're going to drug test you every week, or we're going to do, right? there's things that it's really difficult because no one really wants that for their kid. I mean, I think there are some really permissive parents who are pretty cool with whatever, but it's tough if your kid's using cannabis multiple times a day and you can tell as a parent it's not a great outcome. It's not like a once in a blue moon thing, and it shifts my perspective slightly, and I take one hit of low potency flower. It's not generally showing up that way. So yeah, it's a really tough thing to negotiate of how to best approach that for parents. It's tough because there's a lot of different options, and so you have to kind of like find one and work with one that can work with the temperament and personality of your kid, who they are, your relationship with them, all of it. Because no one really wants to see that. It's really tough. I've definitely talked to parents who've taken different routes. Everyone takes different routes, or what to do with that. But yeah. Big one, which I have been just studying relentlessly for 2 years, that I love talking about is sleep and sleep health. Some of the new data on sleep and new research is pointing to so many relationships like with sleep and anxiety, and that they're bidirectional, right? So you're not sleeping enough, you're more likely to have an anxiety disorder. Now you're anxious, you're not going to sleep as well. And sleep related to growth hormone release, hormone balance in general for young people, all people, neurogenesis, new brain cell growth, Alzheimer's. They're seeing a huge connection between, the amyloid plaque buildup in the brain and sleep deprivation. It's a massive topic. And I think when we think about our amount of time we're on screens at night and being exposed to the blue light frequency and the effect on our brain, and it's really impacting our sleep. We sleep right now on average 2 hours less per night in America than we did 100 years ago. It's having a huge effect on mental health. It's a big effect on depression and anxiety. And, we have pretty high sleep needs as humans and mammals in general. And I just think it's the sleep piece to me, it's playing a big role in substance use. It's playing a big role in mental health and our stress management, our physical health. It's such a huge topic. So that's one that I've been really, really passionate about. I think if people are interested in just doing a deep dive on sleep, there's a researcher out of UC Berkeley. His name is Matthew Walker. And he was interviewed on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's really compelling. And he's also on a podcast from Dr. Rhonda Patrick, which was really good and really deep dive into sleep. He wrote a book called Why We Sleep. And it's a great book around this too. But starting there, just listening to those podcasts, it will really spark you to think differently about it. I also sorry, I'm ranting about sleep.
No, go for it.
But I think with the sleep thing, what I try to tell people too is it's like nutrition. Like, let's be really mindful of our nutrition and what our food and where it comes from and how we eat, et cetera. But it can also slide into obsessiveness where then all of a sudden you can have a really unhealthy relationship with food. And we talk about, we have eating disorders, et cetera. So sleep is kind of similar. Like, I travel sometimes, right? So if I go to the East Coast and got to get up at 8 a.m. or get up in the morning at 6 a.m. on the East Coast, 3 a.m. here, I'm not getting a good night of sleep that night. And I just kind of wake up and go, okay, I don't drink coffee every day. I'll drink it today. And I'm using this drug caffeine really systematically on that day. But realizing like it's okay, occasionally we're going to not get great sleep, but if we get overly obsessed with it, then it can start to really affect us. We go to bed, we start to get mental rumination. So let's put attention and effort into our sleep in a way we would like nutrition, but not an obsessive way.
Oh, totally.
Right?
No, this is all resonating with me so strongly.
There's a reason sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
Yes.
It's, I think about even like amphetamine psychosis, where people are, on a 3-day binge with methamphetamine, and they are in a really a rough place mentally as a result of that. It's part of it's the drug, but part of it's sleep deprivation too. No one really thinks about that relating to that specific when someone's binging on stimulants, that the 2 days of not sleeping is going to have an incredibly adverse reaction to your mental health. Well, what's interesting too, related to cannabis, is it's found that cannabis can like kind of help people get to sleep maybe easier on the front end, but it's really disruptive to REM sleep.
Yes.
So you're more likely to wake up in the middle of the night and not get like as deep of sleep, and have, when you have REM interrupted, you get what's called dream pressure, and it's more likely to wake you up. And the irritable thing, you're exactly right. There's something in business called the mood elevator, and you can go on like Harvard Business Review and look this up. And it talks about like when we're in a place of anxiety, an irritable place, like try to commit to doing no harm at work. So if you're a manager, in those moments, having the self-awareness to catch it and say, I have an important meeting today, I'm going to push it if I can till tomorrow, or something like that. Now, what's here, if we want to take this a little deeper, what's fascinating about it, there were some studies done with two issues looking at food in the relationship to sleep, and then social isolation. So when people are sleep deprived, others perceive them as even if you take a picture of someone who's 2 or 3 days sleep deprived, people will say, just by their body movements, how they're talking, their pictures, people will say, I don't know if I'd want to be friends with that person. Interesting, right?
Wow.
So, but the other thing is, they've done studies where they watched people who are sleep deprived do social interactions, your personal space gets much farther because your amygdala is much more active. So you're on a little more heightened fear-based alert place. So you're skeptical of other people. So if I'm sleep deprived, I'm walking around nervous of others. I'm more skeptical of others. Wow. I'm less likely to connect with others, and my personal space literally gets distance from other people. So the social isolation piece, which we know is related to addiction and all these kinds of things, when we're sleep deprived, it plays into that. The other thing, which was interesting, when you're sleep deprived, you have two hormones, ghrelin and leptin.
Yeah.
One of them relates to signaling that you're hungry. One of them signals that you're full. Well, when you're sleep deprived, the signaling that you're full is kind of turned down, and the signaling that you're hungry is turned up.
Interesting.
So you're more likely, you eat more when you're sleep deprived. And then a woman I forgot where she's at in Europe, she studied sleep for 25 years. She did a study where they told people they kind of tricked them in the study. They said, we're basically studying whatever, like reaction time when you're sleep deprived versus when you're not. But what they really wanted to study, when they put them back out into the lobby, they had a spread of food, healthy options, fruit, vegetables, stuff like, healthier stuff. And then they had sugary stuff. And by far, the people, when they compared the people who were sleep deprived to not, when they observed them through a two-way mirror, people who were sleep deprived were way more likely to be grabbing sugar, chocolate, sweets, stuff like that than like broccoli. And the people who got enough sleep, they're like pretty content to grab carrots and some dip or whatever.
Yeah.
So how you eat and how much you eat is related to sleep deprivation as well. So this is where your mind gets blown when you start hearing this information about sleep, because you're like, wow, this touches on
so many things,
everything.
Yes.
It's like, it's really wild, and we just sort of, this whole notion, I remember if I'll sleep when I'm dead, or it's like, we consider it like a cool thing to like not sleep. And the incidence of drowsy driving accidents compared to drunk driving accidents, it's way more. People die way more from drowsy driving accidents, but for every $100 we spend on public service announcements and education on drunk driving campaigns, we spend $1 on drowsy driving campaigns.
If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get notified of more videos, and go ahead and check out another video while you're at it.